Hey, Kim.
Well, hello, how is everyone today? I'm glad to be here. How are you,
We're,
Tammy?
I'm glad we're here too. We had a little, this for those of you joining us, this will be a little bit shorter because we had a little technological issue, but it's fixed and we're good to go. So for those of you joining us, we'd love it if you have some questions on partner betrayal, prodependence. This is your space. Kim and I were just talking about, she's working on co-authoring the Prodependence book with Routledge, which is a major publisher, and it will be a more clinical. So this model is really gaining some traction. We're excited to see where it goes. That book won't publish until 2021. Which sounds so far away, but we were just talking about scheduling something, and we're talking about how busy we are and how fast the year is already sliding by. So if you have questions, we'd love to have you insert those in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. But Kim's, let's chat. What's happening in your world? What are your partners bringing to you in your practice?
Well, first of all, I haven't been here for about a month, and I'm really glad to be back. I was sick last time, so I apologize for that. I wouldn't have been much help. I work in Mesa, Arizona at an agency where we run a big program called SABRE, Sex Addiction and Betrayal Recovery, and that is for people who are struggling with sexual addictions or compulsivities and partners who are affected by that. So we have this past year and a half almost, which is crazy, we've been using the new Prodependence model with the partners, which is, I assume, why anybody who comes into this room are interested in what that is. And so it's been very successful. Partners and loved ones love this concept of prodependence being more attachment, understanding when people pull away, we panic. And sometimes our behaviors are just efforts to try and keep that person close to us and to try and be helpful. Our behaviors might not be helpful. We have to figure that out, but it's not because we're sick or there's something wrong with us, or it's not because I'm codependent. It's because I love somebody who is struggling and I am trying to manage the fallout and the crisis from that. It sounds like sometimes I say it to people and it sounds small, but if you have any experience at all in the recovery world or the healing world or the addiction world or just the world, most people know what codependency is. It's been around a long time, but and there's some aspects of codependent interventions and work and things like that that can be healing, like boundary setting and knowing my needs and how to get my needs met and understanding how to take care of myself, and those kind of things are so helpful. But it kind of came from this place where if I'm in a relationship with an addict, then I'm sick too. And Prodependence does not subscribe to that concept at all. If you are in a relationship with an addict, you're probably in crisis and trying to, like I said earlier, manage that crisis. So the work we do with Prodependence is really based on just crisis intervention. We're just trying to do the very basics in the beginning. In the beginning, if I'm in discovery, I've just found out that my partner is dealing with this, with an addiction of any kind, by the way. I just happen to work with sex addiction a lot, but this could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be other chronic eating disorders or other chronic mental illnesses that just create crisis. Then the first things I need to do is kind of recalibrate and find my balance, figure out how to do very basic things like find support, and which is number one thing. And this is a good place to start here on sex and relationship healing. There's so many great support groups and webinars and different things to give you support and get your feet kind of on the path of healing, whether you're a partner or an addict, luckily. So we do things like create balance, like set goals every day that helps just keep me stable if I'm the partner, and keeps me able to just do my day-to-day functioning. Because sometimes when this crisis happens, it just knocks everybody down, and it's hard to make decisions from that crisis, and oftentimes not a great idea to make big decisions from that crisis place. So we start doing those basics, and then there's very specific things that we talk about once we kind of figured out, got some education and figured out what is it that I'm dealing with. Then how do I help? How can I be helpful to both to myself and to the person I love? But I often say we just can't, cars don't run on empty tanks. And so, it's hard to give someone a ride if you have no gas, so to speak. So we have to fill our own tank. And a lot of the Prodependence early work for partners will be just that. And whether you know it or not, it's easy to let go of your own self-care. And because when you're managing a crisis, you're just trying to keep somebody else alive, or your family alive, or keep kids going to school, just keep life functioning. And sometimes it's easy to lose sight of, for a partner, it's easy to lose sight of your needs. It's easy to lose sight of, because the needs of an addict become overwhelming for most people. So that's kind of some basic introduction there, but I will really rely on Q&A. So send them in here, questions, so that we can answer.
Yeah, we do have, but I was thinking, before you joined us, I was talking about a situation where I got way too caught up in the details and things this week, and I wasn't taking care of myself, and I had to make amends. And, it was one of those things I finally went, wait, what am I doing? And so just like you're talking about, if the tank is empty, you're not giving anybody a ride. Absolutely true. So I stopped. I went to a 12-step meeting. I took care of myself, went to bed early that night. So I was like, the next day I was like, I'm going to be okay, and all of my relationships improved, from there. So like, it was a very recent reminder of how critical that is, even, when it was, like looking at it, it was for good reasons and all of that kind of stuff. Absolutely. But yeah, it didn't work out so good. So there's a question. So among the many one-night stands, 3-night stands, and affairs over the years that my husband recently admitted to, one of them stands out. He spent 2 years texting constantly with an out-of-town old high school friend, even talking about my personal issues. Eventually, they had a sexual affair and even tried to start a business together, traveling together several times. It ended badly, and he acted with others out even more dramatically after that, like nightly Tinder hookups. None of this was known to me until recently. I'm wondering how to view this affair and whether to view it through the same SA lens that I'm viewing his many other inappropriate relationships, or was this more of a traditional affair, or is this to be seen as such? I kind of figure it was another misguided way of seeking intimacy and venting his addict anger, but I want to be sure that that's the correct perspective.
Well, that's a really good question. And I think the very first thing that my gut tells me is just to say, I'm sorry for what you've been through. That's a lot to digest. And I can hear your healing, even in your question, trying to sort out, am I in the right place with this particular instance? Because I seem to have more emotion, maybe, or more doubt or angst attached to that affair than some of the other acting out issues. So it's a little bit. I'll give you what my gut says as you're talking. I feel like in this particular case, it's probably a little more traumatic for you because it seems like there was more emotion attached to it. First of all, he knew her before. So if it's an old girlfriend or partner, then there was already an emotional relationship. And then they, formed a business relationship and some of those other things, which I think for most partners is much more painful than a hookup with a unknown person or a prostitute or something like that, because there's an emotional element to it. So it's an extra layer of pain sometimes for the partner, for you in this case. And so I'm not surprised that there's more trauma connected to that, that you're feeling a little bit more trauma connected to that. On the flip side, yes, I think this sounds like part of his acting out behavior if he's an addict, a sex addict. This is probably his maladaptive way to, like you said, to get connection and attachment and to feel important and loved and all those things that he needs to learn how to do in a healthy way with healthy relationships. So I want to validate the fact that there's more trauma connected to that because there's more history and there's more emotion. Not to minimize any of the other acting out behaviors at all, but um, I don't think that you're in the wrong place, I guess is what I want to say, thinking that. I think most individuals in that situation would feel very similarly. So I think as you in whatever way that you're working through your own trauma and healing, um, that particular affair will probably take a little bit more work than some of the others. You're going to have to sort of unravel that and look at it from a little different angle because there's more personal involvement there.
And I think that you include that he was talking about my personal issues, so that it was just like Kim said, it was an old relationship rekindled, but also that he took what should be between the two of you to this person as well, and started a business and everything else. So yeah, 100% that one would have more attached to it emotionally. You know, I've said this before on different things too. When it's your best friend, your sister, whatever, when there's some emotional attachment, and again, like you said, Kim, not to minimize Tinder hookups and all of that, but when there's that emotion, which when you're in a relationship with somebody, you expect the emotional attachment to be with you, and so when that feels like it's going somewhere else, that I think adds another layer of of pain and betrayal to the mix. So, but really glad you're here. I mean, glad you're here and doing, things. I did what, Kim said too about, you're looking, for healing, and, I think you're on the right path with that. So
I think it's important too, to piggyback Tammy, is that I think that's a really good point. It's one thing when in this case your spouse shares a very intimate part of what should be just between the two of you, which is your sexual relationship, and shares that outside of that with someone else. But that's one thing, that's one layer of pain. But then not only did he share that, but he shared parts of me, like my personal thoughts, feelings, experiences so it was another boundary violation there, because somebody I didn't ask and didn't allow into my life for a particular reason was let in, even when I didn't want it. So that's what we call kind of layers of trauma. That's like, so just having the affair is a layer, and then you add that extra personal, the fact that he knew her before, the fact that he gave her information about you, the fact that they started a business, the fact that, so there's some layers to that one that go a little bit deeper probably than a Tinder hookup.
So the next question kind of tags onto that. When you say a little more work needs to be done there, what does that mean? My husband had a 7-year and a 3-year affair with different women, and I had to read what a horrible bitch I was later when he said that was all lies to keep the affairs going. How do we heal?
Yeah, when I say, okay, so thank you for your question. When I say a little more work there, I just mean like I might have to do a little deeper therapeutic work around that trauma. It might just go a little bit deeper. It might take a little bit longer for me to rebuild trust in certain areas that were breached in that relationship. So I in no way mean that you have work to do because of what he did. That is not that I hope that's not what you heard. What I just mean is healing, even being the victim of this, of somebody betraying trust and breaching boundaries in this way, it creates work for you whether you wanted it or not, because I have to now figure out where do I put all this emotional energy? Where does it go? And can I ever trust again him or her or anyone? Like how and that kind of gave you work that you didn't ask for. That wasn't of your making. It was a crisis, a pain that was created not by you. So that's what I mean about work. I wish I had a magic. I wish I could tell you how long it would take. It really depends on the gravity of the betrayal. It depends on how long it's been going on, how much I know, how much I knew. There's so many factors. My own personal ability to hold that information. And I always say, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. One of my favorite metaphors for this is like a vessel, like a boat. Every boat that floats on the water has what we call a plimsoll line, and that is the load level that the boat can handle putting stuff in it before it takes on water. I think individuals have a plimsoll line, but every vessel's different. What I can handle, what Tammy can, what any of us can handle is very different. And for how long as well, how long I can hold that. So I will advocate this forever, but a good trained, highly trained therapist in betrayal trauma, be really nice if somebody who kind of came from a prodependent perspective, that can help you sort through the aftermath and all of that, and help you reframe and figure out, once you do the grounding work and figure that out, and help you figure out, can I trust in this relationship again? Can I let go? What's my limit? What's my plimsoll line? And for how long? How long can I wait? That's a very personal journey. But I don't do this work because I don't see healing. I like to say that all the time. It'd be the worst job ever. So I would have quit 15 years ago. I see, and I don't always see relationships heal. I want to say that. Not all relationships heal, and not all relationships are supposed to heal, maybe. But I think many do. And they do when both people put the work in. To the betrayed partner works on their healing and their broken heart and figures out how to make decisions from a steady place. And the addict or the person who caused the injury, when they figure out how they got there and how to not go there again, and they learn more about themselves and how to create trust and safety, so attachment can be recreated in the relationship. I see relationships survive. So, but your timing's really personal.
Yeah, well, and I think, like you were talking about with a wound, it depends how deep the wound is as to how long it takes to heal. And and I've kind of rebelled at the term recovery for partners, because it has, in my opinion, been tied to the 12 steps, and you need to do you need to keep your side of the street clean, and you need to do your work, and blah, 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 blah. And when somebody pointed back out that it's like recovery from a wound, recovery from the injury, and I was like, okay. So, because I use healing a lot, but I think, the deeper the wound, the longer it takes, and it really needs to heal from within. And what you're talking about with people healing, I think even when couples don't stay together, often there's kids involved, and whatever. I mean, if it's a very new relationship, they may be able to go their separate ways. But when there's kids, even healing so that you can co-parent and eventually co-grandparent together, like I use that because I want people to think this is for the long haul. This isn't like, well, we're going to get divorced and then everything's going to be fine. No, if there's kids, it's the long haul, and those kids, they didn't ask for any of this. So learning so that you can be parents and grandparents and show up, for each other, and not, cause, like, oh, well, you take that birthday and I'll take, Thanksgiving, whatever, I mean, being adult and being able to be in the space. But if you've done some healing around that, that can happen. So, next question, regarding the high school friend. To complicate matters, for 5 months, I knew only about this affair, and only later did he tell me about the entire history of many other women. So I spent a while thinking of this as a traditional affair. So, and I hate, because it sounds like he just told you. So like there wasn't a nice disclosure process. So I hate for partners to have discovery and get, the disclosure, like, well, I want to unburden myself, so I'm going to tell you everything, or whatever. So like oh, hang on. Sorry. It's just one of those days, isn't it, Kim? So,
Yep, it is. It's all good.
Yeah. So, but my thoughts are, like processing through all of that information that you get, is difficult, and doing it with a qualified person, like Kim said, codependent aligned, would be beneficial. So
Yeah, I want to say that too, like because I feel like if you thought it was one thing and then out comes all the other details. So you spent 5 months processing an affair with an old relationship. So your heart and mind were like in it and trying to figure that out, and only to find out that was probably the tip of the iceberg and there was more. So I'm sorry it came out that way. I, like Tammy, feel like that just causes so much more injury. It would be better to have all the information, as painful as it is up front, because you just probably felt like you're getting a grip of, grip of what had actually happened, and then you just get the rug pulled out from under you. So we advocate all the time, and I say this all the time, and in your case, I'm sorry it didn't happen this way, but full disclosures are always better with trained professionals that can help disseminate that information in a way that won't cause more pain, but that will be honest and thorough. So if you have good therapists that can help, and I'm a huge believer in polygraphs. I didn't used to be, but over the many years working in this arena, I feel like polygraphs aren't only a good way to help confirm the truthfulness of a full and complete disclosure, but they can also be a great recovery tool for an addict even. Maybe not forever, but for a time. I find them very, very useful. So don't be afraid to talk to a trained professional. Polygraphers only will give results to a therapist. They won't give results to just anybody, coming in. So you have to be kind of working in tandem with the therapist and a polygrapher to do these type of polygraph exams. But I'm just throwing that out there for disclosure.
okay, so next question. I'm 8 months plus in recovery. She still refuses any kind of recovery on her side, and I feel like I'm trying hard to do what I can and do it correctly. We are in an argument over the past few days. I let all the anger and hurt I've caused push me over the edge. I typically take it fairly well. I've had several core wounds triggered, and I slammed her roses from Valentine's Day against the wall. I'm extremely regretful I let that happen. She said she wants me out. I feel beat down and only said, okay, I want to keep fighting my addiction, and for our relationship, I can only do and go so far. I made a mistake. I'm worried it might have been the last one with her. We have 4 kids between us. We've lived together for the past 2 years of our 5-year relationship. I struggle with doing it all correctly and perfectly. I know that's not realistic. You're right. Do you have any advice on when it seems there are no options?
Thank you for coming in and expressing, and especially not being a partner. I'm glad that you came in for that. There are always options. So even though I know there feels like there isn't, one thing that I will say is you're right. You can't control what her decisions are from here. Even though that, wasn't an unfortunate event that happened and you didn't feel like, or you weren't able to pull up another tool, a better tool to use at that point. It may have been the breaking point for her. That's the thing in any relationship, we don't control that breaking point for the other person when they hit that load level that I was just talking about, that Plimsoll line. And I think we have to be super careful. It sounds like a little bit of a rage outburst, and rage, as I've said on here before, is very dangerous in a relationship because rage is a mixture of all emotion. It's a mixture of hurt and anger and pain and powerlessness. All that stuff comes out in a rage incident, but that can almost cause as much damage as anything else, no matter who it's coming from, whether it's coming from a partner or an addict. But so all you can really do is work with you, find your way out of that place, that dark place, get back, back into a good place. And for a lot of partners, actions speak much louder than words. I would say probably most. So there's not going to be a lot of words right now. I would think that you could say that would make it better. I would just do what I say I'm going to do. And whether or not she stays or goes, you will want to be a healthy person for your children, their children someday. Like, you want to find that healthy space. And I always say when I work with addicts, I know when they're really getting better because they're doing it for them. And they will say that, like, I would give anything to fix the relationship, but I realize that I've caused a lot of damage I might not be able to fix. And but I know I'm worth it. And because I want to be that person, I want to be, I want to do the right things and have healthy attachments and relationships. I'm going to keep on my journey and on my path. So my advice would just be that: stay the path, make amends if you need to about that, however that looks. Have a lot of accountability, and a plan for when you are angry or rageful. Set that plan in motion so you have it ready for you if you ever find yourself in one of those spaces where you feel like you're trapped and don't know what else to do. There's always another option.
So a bunch of things. 8 months, great for you, but it's really a short time. So I want to give that perspective. Dr. Rob talks on his webinar, pretty frequently about it's a year and a half, and anytime the clock resets, it just makes it more challenging. If you haven't read Out of the Doghouse, it's one of the books that Dr. Rob wrote, but it's really about restoring trust and how you do that. And like Kim just said, it's what you do. With the incident, saying I'm sorry isn't going to cut it. Saying I'm sorry, but you triggered da 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 is really not going to cut it. So, you have 4 kiddos, so even if it's inviting her for the sake of the children to look at how can we navigate our relationship, because like I said a little bit ago, and Kim did too, it's like you've got kids, you will have grandkids, so you're tied together for the long haul, regardless of whether you stay together or not. So finding a means of navigating that where you can be the best person you are, be the best dad to those kids, be the best, co-parent with her, whatever form that takes. There's a lot of opportunity, but you can't make her, do anything. You can invite her, say, I know how badly this has hurt you, and I invite you into getting healing from that, and that's a different way of than if you're not doing your side of it, because she's going to go, this isn't my problem. You've done this to me. So very challenging. You won't do this perfectly. Welcome to real life. I was telling Kim before we started about, I had a complete, meltdown on Wednesday because I was trying to control all the details and, a situation. It didn't go well. It didn't go my way. And so, went to a 12-step meeting, got reminded that, I got no control over results, which is so true. And, all I can do is control my actions and reactions. Agree with Kim too about rage. I used to have something, I called it my white hot rage, and it would come up like almost out of nowhere. I finally identified that came up every time I felt hurt. If I was hurt, I would get this, and like I learned to just like stay away from everybody. And I'm sure I had a look like, just stay away from me too, but at least I didn't do stuff to further damage. I finally went to my therapist, started working on it. And since I worked on that specific issue, I have not had that come up again. But I identified, that anger for me is really a cover for hurt. It's, so understanding where that rage comes from, and I could see it's hurt, it's fears, all of those things that Kim, identified. I'm trying so hard, you just do this perfectly. You are human, you won't, so get over that. All you can do is do the best you can. And a 12-step program like I have, gives me the opportunity to, I made amends to the, I made amends to Dr. Rob because he deserved my amends anyway. So, I said, I owe you an amends. And I told him exactly what, and, we have relationship repair because of that. But I have a program. I've got tools to use that I didn't have before in order to do that. So, when I found out about the first affair, I was blamed by the therapist. Oh, I hate that. In other words, I wasn't giving him enough attention, and he felt that of course he could get away with anything, and he did. So now there is this trauma that I've also have therapist trauma to deal with. It's hard to keep trying to teach a therapist when you guys are talking about question on the kid front. Do we tell the kids that who are 20, 23, and 26 and ruin their lives, or try to get over it and not let them know all the horrific stuff? I know we recreate life in the next generation, but can we can they be helped with counseling? So
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot packed in there,
yeah,
that question, but
yeah.
I want to say, at least in the front part of the question, or at least the comment that you made, also, I just hate to hear about therapists blaming a partner. That just kind of makes my stomach sink. And I can understand how frustrating it would be to keep trying to teach them codependently, this is not my fault. And I wouldn't give up. I guess that's what came to my mind is take Dr. Rob's book and put it on her desk or his desk and say, please read. I need you to see me this way. This perspective is very, very new. Blaming the partner perspective a little bit about certain things is still alive and well, unfortunately. But I think we just have to, but it kind of goes back to recovery concepts for a partner. We have to learn what we need, and then we have to figure out how to get that need met. And if that therapist won't bend, find another. Just find another. Keep looking. It's okay. It's okay if it doesn't fit, or they can't maybe see you the way or help you in the way that you need. As far as talking to the kids, there's been some research on this. Some kids that were told, this is probably 20 years old, but told about parents' issues, this addiction issues, and they overwhelmingly came back and said, we don't really want to know all of that, which was a surprise to the therapists that were at the time all about disclosure. They're all about tell your kids and, let's not have family secrets and that kind of a thing. And while I don't believe in family secrets, I think there are things that kids don't want to know. And I think sometimes when we're in an addicted kind of relationship like this like addiction stuff and all the crisis going on, there's sometimes a lot of black and white thinking, and that comes along with trauma too. Like, I'm just trying to figure it out. So I feel like the pendulum sometimes swings pretty heavy when I'm in that place. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. If you feel like your kids are involved enough, that they know enough, that they're asking questions, that they found stuff on dad's computer or mom or whatever, like, then you have to, I think you could say enough to let them know, look, we're dealing with some things. It's personal. It really doesn't have to do with you guys. These are clearly adults. But, if you're connected to them and close to them and they kind of sense something's wrong, you can give them information without giving them all the information. So I think you could say, how much is it that you want to know? Here's my limit. Like, Dad and I are going through some stuff. It's not easy. We could use your love and support. But just know that we are taking steps that we need to take to get help that we need. And I know maybe I could use your prayers, or I could use a lunch date now and then, or whatever that you might need that be appropriate for a parent-child relationship, even an adult child. Absolutely ought to let them know that therapy could be helpful. If they feel like, I just think therapy is helpful to everyone, but I could be biased. I am a therapist.
But I'm with you.
Okay. Whether you're dealing with this heavy stuff or not, I think I always say some people pay for their kids' college, I pay for therapy. So I have adult children that I feel like it's hard. Parents have a hard time, kids can just hear so much easier from other people and learn from other people when they can't sometimes, as well intended as we are as parents. There's only so much we can teach, especially as they turn into adults. We can just set a good example of self-care, of boundaries, of all those things that we want them to learn, and certainly give them the resource of a therapist if that's something that they would like. I think kids don't necessarily repeat generationally our mistakes, like because I do A, B, and C, they're going to do A, B, and C. I think kids repeat how we feel about ourselves. That's my personal, I think our kids repeat our level of self-worth and self-esteem and self-compassion, if that makes sense. So if I'm not good at self-worth or self-esteem, or I'm not super good at loving me and forgiving and being generous with myself, I think kids tend to repeat that, which then can turn into negative behaviors. But I don't think they get passed down, negative behaviors, as much as that sense of self can get passed down. So that always motivates me to stay on my journey of constant awareness about what part's mine and what I need to do, kind of like what Tammy was talking about earlier, recognizing my week is out of balance. I can tell because of A, B, and C. I know these things about myself, and then get the help that I need. I think that's the very best way we can keep some of these patterns from erupting in the generations later. And bottom line is, kids will have their own, I have learned, they will have their own challenges. That's just a part of life. And we won't save them from all that, no matter how much therapy we do, no matter, and that's okay. That's okay, because that's what helps us learn and grow. But not to be fearful about that, but give them resources if you have them, love them through it. I don't know. Those are my thoughts there.
So I was thinking, they don't want to know the horrific stuff. No kid wants to ever hear about their parents' sex lives. They just don't. I don't care how old they are. They just don't. So, I think she adds, they're not asking questions. We are just saying we are struggling with marriage stuff. The problem from my standpoint is they're wondering why I'm being so mean to dad. Why can't I just let him be? And they don't know what that means. Or I just don't let him be him, and that they don't know that there's been 11 affairs. But so your thoughts, do you say, do you go into anything more about that? It's like, I'm hurt, I'm whatever, what are your thoughts?
I think you follow the kid's lead. I really do. Even an adult kid. My guess is your temptation might want to be to tell them about the 11 affairs, to kind of help have them have some perspective as to why you're so injured and why you have this energy of anger and sadness or whatever might be going on. But I would say, unless they specifically ask for details, I would avoid the temptation to tell them more than what they can handle. Because bottom line, no matter what happens in the relationship, I wouldn't want my opinion, even of my partner, spouse, impacting long-term their own experience with their father, if that makes sense. Like,
yes.
I don't want my stuff tainting their relationship with their father, because that's not theirs. I understand there's a betrayal of the family a little bit there, and I get that. Like, I'm not minimizing the behavior, but you want them to develop their own good, bad, whatever relationship with their father. Aside from this information could cause a lot of damage, maybe even to their relationship, and it's his struggles. It's not theirs, if that makes sense. So they're going to have to navigate that. So those are my thoughts.
She adds, it's actually boundaries they are seeing. I'm trying to hold him accountable. That's all. And that's fair.
I would tell them that, look, he's hurt me pretty badly. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to establish safety for myself. They might not understand boundaries, but they might understand safety. And sometimes those aren't pleasant, because I've never had to do that before. I didn't think I needed to. So I understand how it looks to you. But it's just a safety thing that I'm trying to set up in the relationship. So they might be able to understand safety language.
And finally, because we started late, for disclosure, what happens when there are no CSATs in our state to do a disclosure? How do you feel about an intensive? So
I feel very good about an intensive. There are therapists other than CSATs that are trained in disclosure. So I want to make that clear. CSATs don't have the corner of the market on disclosure.
Well, and not all of them do disclosure. So
yes, and not all of them.
It takes certain people that, it's a process, and it takes certain personalities to be able to do those effectively.
So there are many people who are trained in disclosure that do couples work, or I would just ask them, what's your experience with disclosure? What kind of training do you have? I just want for 2 cents, I think that the partner needs to have his or her own therapist. The addict needs to have his or her own therapist. And then the disclosure, the ability to receive the disclosure on the partner's end, and then to give the disclosure on the addict's end, need to be really worked out with those 2 therapists. And then those 2 therapists come together and do an extended session with both partners to do that disclosure. So there's safety. What do we do before? What does the disclosure look like? How much detail do you want? You know, whatever. And then afterwards, what's our plan? What if I don't feel safe all of a sudden and I get a bomb dropped on me? What do I want that to look like? So therapists should be able to help do that. So those are just some little key things you'll want to ask a therapist, but they don't have to be a CSAT. There are many EFT trained therapists who know how to do disclosures, and other therapists. You just need to ask. But
Yeah.
CSATs do get that as part of their training. Good
So
question.
thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Kim. And I again apologize for the technological challenges we experienced at the beginning, but Kim will be back in March on the 1st and 3rd Fridays of the month. Yeah, I was like, what day is it? And then her colleague, Matt Wheeler, is doing the 2nd and 4th. So if you haven't had an opportunity to plug in with him, he does, you know, attachment and really good stuff too. So there's lots of great things. Join Dr. Rob Monday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time, Dr. David. So lots of great resources. I hope you'll keep coming back. Thanks, Kim. Great to see you.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.